Welcome to the Inside ISW podcast, where we talk about process automation and the impact it can have on your business. I'm your host, Russ Savee, Business Development Consultant with Initium SoftWorks, joined by our Principal Director of IDC and Process Automation, Collins Sarmento. In this episode, we're sitting down with Max Vermeir and John Knisley from ABBYY, our partner for intelligent data capture and process optimization. Hi, Max. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your role at
Well,
ABBYY.
first of all, guys, thanks for having me on the podcast. It's a pleasure to be here. And my role at ABBYY, I'm responsible for AI strategy and product marketing. I'm really happy to have John with me as well. He's on my team, but I'll let him do his own introductions. But I mostly look after how ABBYY positions itself and also helps our customers move through different cycles when it comes to artificial intelligence. The market is moving really fast, technology is moving really fast, and we want to be there to guide our customers and, of course, also our partners together with you on that journey. So that's what my role is all about. And I have a great team, and John is actually one of those people that is on my team as well.
And what about you, John?
Thank you for having us on today. I am on Max's product marketing team focused on process AI and ABBYY's timeline process intelligence application. Work with partners like yourselves at ISW, as well as customers, prospects, and our internal teams to define and deliver business value from process intelligence. Ultimately, the goal is to leverage the technology to speed and scale automation and transformation programs. That's what we're looking to do with Timeline. Prior to ABBYY, I was a partner at Reveal Group, the boutique intelligent automation consultancy, and I also spent a couple years with Fortress IQ on their first-in-class discovery technology.
And thanks for that. In our other episodes, we've talked about the history of these technologies and how we've seen the change over time. Can you give us some background on data capture, how it started, and what the technology was like in the beginning?
I think it's been a really interesting journey so far. What I think is even more interesting is that a lot of people don't realize how far it actually goes back. The very first OCR engine was actually created as early as the 60s. And if you really count for just the mathematical wizardry behind it, you can go back even further to the process itself. But of course, what everybody now realizes is that artificial intelligence is so many different things. And the whole evolution that intelligent outcome processing, OCR, has gone through has been going on for quite some time. We've been doing AIs long since before AI was cool. Now, our technology is very prominent in the market, is absolutely necessary. And that really makes it interesting because we can still leverage some of the newer technologies to also deliver new outcomes and faster results for our customers as well. So I wouldn't say that it's just evolved over time. It continues to evolve as we're getting new and new technology coming from the community, from the market, from technology vendors, and that we can incorporate to make our products even better for our customers.
Thanks, Max. John, did you have anything else to add to that?
Not on the data capture side, on the process mining side, looking at that evolution, the concept of process optimization and interest in kind of understanding how your business operates to improve it. And that goes back all the way to the late 1800s. But really, in the 1990s was when we begin to see the process mining that we see today come into the picture. It started in academia and is still influenced by it heavily today. It started to get commercialization of process mining technologies in the 2010s or so. Then in 2020, with the advances in AI, we started to get into task mining. And now in 2025, we're starting to see this next wave of advancements that's influenced by Gen AI driving renewed interest in the importance of business process management, which is kind of having a new golden age. There's a lot of talk these days that you can't have AI without PI, which I think suggests that we're in for a very interesting couple of years coming up in the process intelligence world.
Yeah, you can't have AI without PI. It's like having a Ferrari without a road, nowhere to go.
You can go really fast somewhere or nowhere, I guess.
So we've come a long way since the earliest technologies. What has changed over the years? What are the current state of this technology? And how does it meet the modern business needs?
So, from the AbbVie perspective, I think we've been continuously evolving the way that our technology works. If you think back a couple of years, even, and it's not even that long, everything when it came to intelligent document processing was in the color of enterprise gray. I like to refer to it as it was very complex. It was all in enterprise gray, and you needed quite a lot of knowledge. There was a steep learning curve to work with the technology. One of the things that ABBYY did when the whole low code, no code revolution came is jump on that and provide intelligent document processing in a way that allowed anybody, even the business user, to work with it and solve their problems. We did that through offering ready-made AI models for about 150 different types of document types available to them today. The exciting part is when you couple that with insights from John's favorite topic, which is process AI, and leverage that to visualize the ROI, then build a solution using our technology when it comes to documents. All of that integrates into the customer's ecosystem. Now, of course, the interesting thing happens just like with everything else after ChatGPT was introduced, slapping a very nice interface onto an incredibly performant and considerably larger type of transformer than we've ever seen before, suddenly created this impact that we can do so much more with this. And actually, it wasn't the fact that we could do more, it was simply that now more people understand what this type of technology can do for them. So that really created a momentum for both categories of our products so it can now be seen as a crucial part of any type of automation, whether that's traditional automation, what used to be called intelligent automation, or now AI automation, which also involves agentic. And I know so for a fact that the statement that John made earlier, there's no AI without PI, holds true, especially when we're talking about AI agents. I don't know, John, if you wanted to add anything to that, because you've also been looking at the evolution from the outside in. So maybe you have some perspective.
The only thing that I'd add on to that, I think that's kind of curious in the process intelligence space these days, is we've shifted the last couple years from a primary focus on just discovery. And I think some of that was caused by all the RPA automation companies that acquired process mining technologies. You had Automation Anywhere acquire Fortress IQ, you had UiPath acquire Process Gold. That drove a lot of the use cases towards automation. In recent years, or in the past couple years, what you've seen is extending that across the product lifecycle or program lifecycle through the design, build, and optimization of those projects. Process intelligence can play across that whole range, and you're starting to see it now play a much more prominent role in compliance and monitoring of business processes. And I think the uniqueness that you're starting to see is early on, you can use process intelligence to predict the ROI of a project. And then throughout the program and life cycle of that project, you can then prove the ROI as well. So you can bookend it on both sides. And more what we're hearing today is organizations are demanding a lot more accountability to the outcomes that have been promised and the outcomes that are delivered. I think process intelligence plays directly into that ability to provide insight and guidance on how your organization is operating and what the value from these investments are.
So with this tremendous interest in getting AI into production, how does process mining help accelerate that AI adoption, John?
Years ago, we used to hear that 80% of transformation projects fail. Everybody had transformation fatigue. I vividly remember walking into a meeting and the sponsor pulling me aside saying, whatever you do, don't mention transformation. It's the word we have to avoid. I hate to say it, we're hearing a similar tone, I think, with AI a little bit. Right now, 80% of projects that go into pilot don't make it into production. 90% of companies are having trouble tracking the ROI of their AI projects. We're at this peak of high expectations, and I think we're going to go through a little bit of that hype curve that Gartner promotes. So it'll be challenging times in some respects. Are going to impact every process in the company in the coming years. Full stop. It's going to impact everything. But how do you slot AI into your organization and into your processes without knowing how your company is current? The agents will just handle it all. And I think we're having, we had AI washing a little bit before. Now we're having a little bit of agent washing. These miraculous agents will just understand how our business operates and be able to fix everything. The fact is that agents do better when you give them the process and give them the business logic. And the key to providing that context is going to be process intelligence.
Yeah, I was just wanted to add to John's experience that he shared in terms of the agents and the agent washing. I've been playing around with AI agents for coding at the moment, which is actually one of the prime use cases that we've seen before. And as I was going through it, I was pleasantly surprised at how quickly it was able to understand the plan I had laid out in terms of what it needed to do and putting together this coding application, an app that was fully working. And then up until the point that I asked it to take the next step and add on top of what it had already built, and suddenly decided, well, everything before is no longer relevant. There's only this new task, so I can delete everything. And my working app was just gone. It's non-existent. But I think that really validates the point that John just made, which is they perform better if they have an understanding of the existing process that's in place. And also, even better, I would say, if they have a blueprint of how to automate it and also the tools that they have available to them. So that's really, similar to what John said, how we are positioning ourselves and how we see that our customers will require both process AI and document AI from ABBYY, and together with our partners are able to leverage that in a way that they can actually be successful when it comes to automation in general, but especially with AI automation.
Where have you seen this having the most significance as far as what industries has it impacted the most?
I think your most common use cases in industries are finance and banking, probably the biggest one. Healthcare is another area. I think sort of underrepresented is probably manufacturing and retail. You're starting to see a lot more interest in leveraging this technology on the process side, at least, towards supply chain management is a massive area. We all had to sort of wake up during COVID that supply chains are so fragile. So the ability to leverage this technology to have better visibility into your supply chain and use simulation and prediction to add resilience is critically important, but not as common as the traditional finance and accounting practices that we hear so much about, the procure to pay and record to report.
Yeah, and I think overall, the interesting bit that you're seeing right now is that across the different types of organizations that you have, they are focusing a lot on personal productivity as one of the first use cases for just applying Gen AI through copilots, chatbots, and stuff like that. If you look at some of the research that has been done, and some of the things that we've also been seeing in the work that John and the team have been doing, is really the actual great benefit that they can have from applying these technologies is on the business productivity side. So not the personal productivity, but actually that's where it's quite easy to implement these types of technologies because they solve the blank slate problem. They solve the blank slate problem of how do I get started? What knowledge do I have to gather? And how do I create this new type of object? Whereas on the business process automation side, like John said, it's having its revival because I think that is absolutely where the bigger benefits are and the huge amount of productivity that can be gained. Nonetheless, if you look at it, we're still on that journey. And I think the complexity that we already touched on, which is the technology in itself, the ability to control it or have guardrails and compliance around it, and then the changing regulations, all of that is playing into a slower adoption, especially in compliance heavy organizations to be able to even think about this technology. I think John will agree. It's not the first time that we've heard, well, we would not even be able to leverage this technology simply because it's using one of the big tech vendors, OpenAI, Claude, Anthropic, any others, even Google Gemini. If it's embedded and you're providing me services which are built on top of that, there's not enough transparency in terms of how these things are built, how they operate, how they think, and the explainability of the AI to solve this problem that we have as a customer, because we will have to explain to our customers how we're coming to these decisions. So and that was just talking about large language models. If we then expand that into AI agents, and like John said, figuring out the entire process, making decisions, making changes within the organization, in high compliance organizations, that's just unthinkable. That's undoable, even, I would say.
So this next question I'm going to ask, what is the most unusual use you've seen for these technologies?
So most unusual, I'll tell you two different types of answers to that question. The most unusual type that I've seen in using our IDP technology coming from ABBYY was actually to analyze train carriages. I don't know if you know this, but there are these places where all trains come together and do their maintenance. But to know which train has to go where in the chain, because a train runs on tracks and you can't just pick it up and put it somewhere else. They're too big, they're too heavy. And so what happened is every train that came through went through this huge kind of gate full of cameras. And each and every camera was focused on a particular part of the train. That could be the carriage itself, could be the brakes, could be the number that was on the carriage to know which carriage it was. And it was the first time that we actually used our capabilities on a physical object. It was some time ago, but it was a really interesting kind of use case that I hadn't thought about because it was real world. It was something that was happening, something physical, tangible, not typically a document, but the technology worked just as well. The other story I want to tell you was where the technology of a large language model was being used to solve an IDP problem. I was in a call with about five different data scientists, and they had from the business received this particular problem with a particular type of document that they needed to extract value from, needed to extract data from. They said, this is going to be so great. We're going to build our own model, and that is going to extract perfectly the information that the business is looking for. And once I started asking questions, I said, okay, but how are we going to do that? That sounds like a very lengthy process to go through. And they said, well, we have already told the business that they will have to annotate 30,000 different documents for us as a sample training data set. I'm like, wow, you must have really nice business people in your organization because usually they're not that happy to do all of that work. When I then probed a little bit further and asked, can you show me what it is that they need? I saw a purchase order. And that purchase order actually had a particular number on it that was even structured in every single time the same way. So my mind immediately went, so why are you using a bazooka to try and kill a mosquito? Because I can write you a regular expression that will get that exact value every single time, no questions asked, 100% straight through processing. And you could just see a lot of data scientists suddenly going like, oh, damn, we are overthinking this. They were building a model on their own, not even taking something off the shelf, but really overcomplicating the problem. And I think that has been happening a lot over the last couple of years since the technology was introduced. They kind of came back. But now we're luckily past that, and people are fully realizing that there is the right solution, the right type of technology for the right kind of problem. And that's really where our purpose-built AI mantra came from ABBYY, that we employ in both document and process AI at the same time.
That is a really tough act to follow. And I'm going to sound really boring when I give my response to this. How am I going to answer this, carriage underbody response with process mining and come up with a better story? I can't think of anything. The best example of underutilization with this technology is not exactly aligned with the question, but it's an interesting point. We did a study of tax reconciliation, as boring as you can make it. The client told us, all of this activity, it's tax reconciliation, everything takes place in our SAP system. When we actually went and looked at the data, less than 25% of the process actually occurred within SAP. Everything else happened on the web, in Excel, in email, in PDFs. And that was a real eye-opener for the organization. Then we sort of went back and started looking at other industries, other use cases. In every area that we looked at, whether it was contract renewals with Salesforce or ITSM with ServiceNow, the time spent in core systems is minimal. And that's scary as a CIO because all of my knowledge at the end of the day is kind of walking out the office and I have no idea how that works because it's not being recorded anywhere. And I think the sort of moral of the story there is that that's why ultimately you need both the process mining, which looks at it from the top down, and the task mining, which looks at it from the bottom up, to be able to get that comprehensive, holistic picture of what's really happening in your organization. So maybe not exactly the question that you ask around utilization, but trying to follow Max's story. That's the best I can come up with at this point.
It's one that actually has a big impact, whereas mine was just sounding really cool. That's the difference.
I was trying to come up with something fun and cool too, but I was like, this is going to sound awful when I bring it up.
Another fun and cool one that used to be part of the timeline demo was the prior year's football plays in the football season, and all the different plays that occurred for each team. I think it was Ryan who had set it up as a demo just to kind of show timeline. But I loved showing that at the end of my demos. It was kind of entertaining to see.
I did a similar thing once where when we first acquired Timeline, I got very excited by the technology because it looks cool. It's amazing what it can figure out, and all of it happens automatically. I actually let it loose on my movie database. I have it's like a Netflix. It's running at home, but actually, what it does, it also stores the things I watch, when I watch it, how long I watch it, etc. And it's a process, And I let it loose on that, and it just confirmed everything that I already knew about myself, is that I'm a total nerd and have an affinity for sci-fi. But it was just fun to see that I could figure that out based off of my data as well. So
Yep.
there's another use of process mining that you didn't see coming.
That was great. And I'll pose this question to both of you as well. John, we can start with you. Is there one area of the business that can nearly always use it that people just generally don't think of?
Again, the most common application that you hear from all the time is around finance and accounting. Every organization has procure to pay, every organization has order to cash, so that's one that you get all the time. The need to have both process and task mining to get a complete picture of your organization is probably one that most people don't think about. I think that's the biggest area that everyone's got, but nobody's really taking full advantage of it. The challenges of integrating process and task mining are difficult, and people have spent a long time trying to sort it out. And fortunately, we're starting to make some really good progress. The industry as a whole is putting it together, because I think that's sort of the last challenge with a lot of this process intelligence work.
I think from the document processing side, the abilities that are available there, even though they have been around for so long, and this is why I'm quite happy that there's been this whole revolution when it comes to AI in general, is that people aren't aware that it's possible. For me, having worked for Abby for more than 8 years, processing invoices is about the last thing I want to talk about ever again, even though it's one of the main use cases still to this day for every single organization. But nonetheless, I still can talk to a customer for the first time and explain what's possible and show them the huge array of capabilities that we have, the types of documents we can support, and the processes that go along with them. And they're just, you know, amazed that it's possible, that it's so easy, that it's so easy to do as well, because there's complexity associated with the technology, which simply doesn't exist anymore today. So I think it's not so much a thing that is not being used. It's simply that there's still a lot of knowledge that has to get sucked up by everybody and within organizations, even within their personal life. That this technology exists and you can use it. It's easy to use, and it really helps solve your real world problems that you have within an organization, especially if you combine it with John's example as well.
So we already talked about the underutilized areas. If someone was shopping for this technology today, either for the first time or to replace something else, what advice would you give them? What should they check for?
It's a great question. I think the biggest thing you want to look for is how quickly you can get value out of the solution that you're looking for. Some of these technologies require a lot of lift and take a long time to drive value, and other ones can go very quickly. Fortunately for Timeline, we're on that faster end. It is very business user friendly, low code platform. You can pick the tool up, and as soon as you get the data in the right formats and get the data incorporated in the tool, you can find insights into your business in hours, which I think is incredibly powerful. Now, obviously, to go deeper requires more time and more effort and more analyst time. But in terms of the immediacy of driving value out of a tool, I think that's a critical area that people need to look at when looking at these technologies.
Yeah, and I think the only thing I would add is that is the critical USP that you need to be looking for when you're shopping and looking for different opportunities or vendors that could help you solve your problem. But then John already talked about, agent washing. I think we've also mentioned AI washing, the ability to back up the speed to value, the time to value with customer use cases, with the ability to really showcase results from different use cases, and also just the ability to move beyond a single use case. The problem that you're trying to solve as a customer right now is not going to be everything. You're going to have another one, another one, another one. So you want to work with a vendor that is able to showcase that from the start and say, hey, we can help you with this. But if you want to go to this, we can also help you with that. And whatever it is that comes next, we'll be your trusted partner and trusted vendor for that throughout time.
And I know right now we've talked about AI quite a bit on some of the questions we had prior, but right now we see it impacting everything. Can you and I'll open this up to both of you as well, if you want to start, John. What has Abby done to make use of AI?
I think this one is really right up Max's.
That's only fair. No, but so I think, and I already touched on it. We were doing AI since before AI was cool. If you look at just the document AI portfolio, we have specific types of technology going from neural networks to LSTMs to transformers, name your next buzzword when it comes to AI. All of it is embedded inside of our platform. But again, what was really fun for me was the fact that when suddenly the whole hype cycle started, I could start talking about those things. I had to held back for multiple years on even mentioning all of these types of technologies simply because people were not interested. And that changed overnight. All of a sudden, they had to know what was under the hood and they had to understand how the engine worked. So now we can continue to push those advancements, and we invest about 25% of our revenue back into R&D. We have over 400 different patents, and that continues to grow every single month. As a company, we continue to strive to be at the edge of technology, but always, and this is important, always optimize it and choose the type of technology for the task at hand. So whether that's looking at time series data inside of our process AI capabilities, or process AI platform, and turning that into an actual timeline, or whether that is doing classification using the technology, the small language model, which is much more efficient and actually more consistent in terms of the output, or that could even be that we're using a language model inside of our OCR engine, but only if we detect that it's a low quality image, because then we're going to deal with ambiguity. So it's these small nuances and not always pointing the bazooka at a mosquito that really make the difference in the type of experience our customers can have with both of our platforms.
And just to add one quick example on to Max's comments, we worked with a retailer and they have a new requirement to report to the regulatory bodies on their lease obligations. This is a big organization. They receive 30,000 leases every year. So, hundreds every week. Initially, they outsourced offshore to do the analysis, and they had to pull out up to 150 data points from those leases. And if you've seen a lease, it's incredibly unstructured, and you're trying to find minute pieces of information out of these 50, 60-page documents and put into a lease management tool. Initially, the organization just said, oh, throw it to an LLM and let's see what happens. It was better than they were getting with their human intelligence on it. They started about 60% with the human in terms of accuracy. The LLM increased it a little bit, but not enough to make it sort of business critical, where the business needed it to be. And that's when we combined our more traditional IDP with the LLM. At that point, we were getting 86, 87% accuracy right out of the box. So an 80+% time improvement, an 80+% accuracy improvement. But that really shows you that combination of sort of the LLM, generative AI, combined with the more traditional IDP approach. That's where real business value can really be delivered. And I think that's where ABBYY stands on the forefront of this kind of multimodal approach to AI to be able to deliver the best business outcomes to our customers.
One last question. What do you see in the future for this technology?
Well, if I had a crystal ball, then I feel like it's a crystal ball kind of question. Short term, I think the importance of what we do as a company and what we do together with you as our partners is going to increase infinitely. As there's further realization by our mutual customers and the market in general about what is really needed in terms of technologies to be able to address the real world problems that they're trying to fix within their organizations. I think also just the pressures that are on the market right now and the organizations that want to operate in them also mean that they will have to optimize, they will continuously have to do better with the same amount of resources that are available to them. If you're looking a little bit further out, I think all of the technologies really coming together talk about the fact that we can interpret data and that we can provide interpretation of any type of data, whether that's structured or unstructured. So for me, the logical evolution of the technology in itself, the platforms in itself coming from ABBYY, is to look even further at more different variations of unstructured content, data in whatever shape and size and form, and deliver value to our customers and our partners in interpreting that and giving that information in very easily snackable, usable way that they can immediately leverage and get that time to value and very easily prove that ROI. And if we're going really long out, well, I'm still waiting on that robot that's going to help me take out the trash because that's what we're all hoping for.
Thank you for that. John, anything to add?
I love the crystal ball question. I've argued for a couple years now that process data is the last missing puzzle piece for companies to being truly data driven. Companies have great security data, they get great finance data off their ERP systems, they get great sales data off their CRMs, but they've never had process data to really leverage. And fundamentally, companies don't know how they operate. And you can't get to any target future state until you understand the current state. And I think the biggest barrier to really any change is this lack of operational visibility that process intelligence, is solving and is starting to solve today. Ultimately, my vision for this technology is that companies are going to have a true system of record for work, which doesn't exist today, but they will have in the future. And it's going to take some time, and there'll be baby steps to get there. But eventually, I think process intelligence can provide that system of record for work that's going to enable companies to be truly data-driven, and then that will lead to agents and autonomous enterprise and autonomous work. It's obviously going to be a crawl, walk, run type situation. It's going to take us some time to get there, but I think that's ultimately the vision about where this technology is going to go and the impact that this technology is going to have.
Thank you again, John and Max from ABBYY, for joining us today on our podcast. We've covered quite a few topics and always appreciate you joining us for these sessions. We'll catch you next time.